All right, GM, welcome to the Wormhole Ecosystem Call. This one's really special. You see Robbie on the screen. You see Saeed online as well. I have them live at Solana Breakpoint. Let's start it off. Saeed, how was the keynote yesterday? On Thursday.
It was pretty good. Massive stadium.
Yeah.
First time speaking at an arena.
Yeah.
The Head Arena is a pretty beautiful venue, and the turnout was amazing. There's thousands of people here, out full support for the Solana ecosystem. So definitely cool to speak at an arena and speak to the entire Solana ecosystem in a keynote. So
yeah,
very very happy.
I sent a photo of you to my mom, and I was like, Dua Lipa performed there. And then my founder performed there. Yeah, no, Twitter was going crazy on Thursday.
The guy who led me up on the stage I think he was trying to hype me up. He's like, "This is the biggest stage you've ever been on. Kevin Hart just performed here last night." And I think he was doing it in a nice way, but in me, I was like, what have I gotten myself into? I hadn't even seen the stage before. I had come in from the back. And I was just getting nervous. I was like, how big is this venue? How big is the stage?
It's pretty wild.
But then when we got on stage, it was awesome.
It was awesome. Great. It looked awesome when we were looking at it as well. Robinson also spoke at the conference. He was on a panel with Carter and Lily. How was that?
It was good. It's funny because Doge or Dogecoin is a legitimate part of Breakpoint and Solana this year. A lot of times you have side events that will tack on to the coattails of a bigger event, but if Solana wants Doge so much that to be tradable on Solana, they are having them as almost like a co-host in some ways. So we had the panel yesterday talking about how we're bringing Doge to Solana, and Lily, the president of Solana Foundation, was there, and it went really, really well.
Yeah, I think the Solana Foundation is putting in a lot of effort to bring a lot of these legacy assets. I know Robinson and I have spoken a lot about this, in terms of Ripple, in terms of Cardano, and a lot of these other assets coming here. In terms of assets moving around, I do want to throw some stats. I think it's pretty good for us to reflect end of year. Last year, we did about 13 billion in volume. This year, we've done about 17. So that's a 30% growth in terms. Our institutional multi-chain AUM at all-time high was about $3 billion. So entities gaining adoption, we're getting more volume. How was the year overall for both of you guys? Saeed, start us off.
I think it's been one of the best years simply because of so many changes. Since, if you look at last year to this year, we had so many new market participants enter this space, not just on the TradFi side, but just new companies, new products, new technologies that have come in that have solved a lot of the problems that were present in the space. And so I think this year has been one of massive growth, acceleration of growth that for this entire industry, and I think Wormhole's been at the center of that, whether it's helping companies tokenize their assets, whether it's helping asset issuers gain adoption, whether it's about building new products that provide serious value to users. I think on all of the things that I care about, it's been an amazing year, and some of the growth metrics kind of validate it.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about Wormhole is to Saeed's point is tokenized assets on chain, stable coins, all these narratives have really taken hold as product, having product market fit. The institutions are really here. They're issuing stuff on Solana, issuing stuff on other blockchains. And as that grows, Wormhole just naturally grows because we're connecting all these blockchains. So any sort of volume or new product or use cases needs to go through Wormhole. So we just grow as the industry grows, which I think is a great position to be in. The other thing I was going to say is we're revamping a lot of our data efforts. I would say 17 is probably conservative, but we're always trying to be more accurate when it comes to that stuff. So I would say it's likely higher. But yeah, I mean, I think this past year has been a huge success, and I'm sure we'll go over a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and for me, this was my first full year working at the Wormhole Foundation. Said I joined December 2024. So, the last couple of weeks of December were pretty chill, it was pretty light. And then we come into January, first week of January, we get hit with the BlackRock BUIDL announcement. We get hit with the ACRED announcement. We're doing so much with Securitize. Start us off with the institutional arc. I've heard Robinson talk a lot about this, and this is Robinson's favorite topic to talk to. So we'll pass it on to him later. But Saeed, I've never heard you talk about institutions. I know this is a deal that you've worked on really passionately. How has the experience been working with Securitize and some of these other institutional players?
It's been awesome. We made a very early bet, I think, before the market knew that tokenization was going to be a major theme for 2025. We were having conversations as early as 2023 with major banks, with major traditional finance participants. And we really took a bet that, like, look, this is going to be something that we believe will start to happen in the market. It will be something that actually provides a net new user base, a net new phenomenon in crypto, which is like, how do I get all of these TradFi players and their customers on chain in a real way, right? We had seen so many things in this industry where people are just doing pilots, and the market is not stupid, right?
Proofs of concept.
So many pilots, things like that, and like that's just in my, I would log that in as like paid marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing really happening. No one's actually building or leveraging real technologies, and no one's actually servicing real users. So we've seen a lot of that, especially the companies that are just good at marketing. They'll do 5-10 pilots a year. Likely they'll, pay some amount to be able to do those things. But it wasn't real growth for the industry, and it didn't really have a major impact. The approach that we wanted to take was actually work with real institutions that had, massive AUMs, that actually had customers, and built something that they could actually use and that they would take to market and they would be public about, right? And help galvanize the rest of their peers to be okay with coming on chain. It certainly helps that we had some of the greatest partners, I think, in the institutional space that you can get. Securitize, we have BlackRock and Apollo and all of these people coming out there publicly, saying, hey, we believe that this technology is actually going to be good for our business, is going to be good for our customers. And here's a real product that you today can use from these great brands, right? Certainly doesn't help to have guys like Larry Fink say that tokenization is going to take over the world and we're going to tokenize everything. I think people started to pay attention. But for us, we knew that was going to happen 2 years ago, and we put in the legwork early, and we were able to strike the right partnerships and work with the right people. And a lot of that has to do with the technology that we were able to build and a lot of the successes that we had been doing for the past 5 or so years. So, I think the institutional narrative and arc is not going to be over, right? Like, everyone likes to throw around the word convergence. What does convergence look like in crypto? It basically means that technology that's decentralized and then its centralized counterparts are one and the same. People see the benefits, people see the value in decentralizing a financial economy and how that affects their businesses and their customers. And so that just becomes the natural backend. It's just an upgrade to a technology stack, and it's not really these two different worlds. Like, we've lived in the bifurcated world. At some point, those worlds will converge, just like they were paper businesses and then digital businesses. Now every business has a certain level of technology and software in it. We expect the same to happen in crypto.
Yeah, and on a tangent, in terms of like convergence and new players entering the crypto market, January was also the month when the Trump coin launched. And Dan was at the crypto ball, and then he was texting it, hey, there's probably a ticker. We didn't know. Robinson was tweeting about the fact that Trump's using Wormhole powered assets. We actually processed over $1 billion to Solana that weekend.
Yep.
Robinson, do you remember that weekend? Wait, first of all, did you punt early on into the Trump meme coin?
I actually don't. No, I didn't. Here's why. Because at the time I was in Europe, and I don't I remember that it was launched, I think, after the event. So everyone in Europe got kind of sidelined because they were already asleep.
Yeah.
So they woke up to this like euphoria of Trump. So I didn't, but I think it was kind of out of spite because I felt like I kind of missed the initial pump, if you will. So no, I didn't, but I know a lot of people did. And yeah, look, I think that what I loved about that situation was in a weekend, we can flex with demand, right? So in a weekend, we did over $1.2 billion in flow because the demand for Trump was so high. And we did it largely while keeping things very secure, keeping a good user experience. And I think that now that's become the norm and the standard, but it's actually a very hard thing to do behind the scenes. And then in terms of like the Trump using some wormhole like issued assets, et cetera, that's bound to happen. Like Wormhole's issued over 5,000 assets. I mean, yes, a lot of them are like X, Y, and Z meme coin, but also things like USDS. We have our own versions of USDC, Biddle, Lido, Staked ETH, all these different like systemic assets. So it's bound to happen that like if you're dabbling with crypto at some point, you're going to use an asset that Wormhole's securing across chains.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting as well. One thing that came out from the community that month was, as you said, Robinson, Wormhole Portal specifically can handle a lot of volume, and Wormhole technology doesn't sort of shut down when things get tough. I think people now appreciate that a lot more when you see that happening with perp dexes very frequently, and they're like, okay, this technology actually works. Saeed, did you punt into the Trump mania?
I didn't, but I had a friend during the Melania token launch, and I watched him. He was on my couch, and he's like, "I have to buy this thing." And I didn't say anything, and then he's like, "I put in, I forgot how much, maybe $10,000 into this token." Turned out it was the wrong contract address, so he lost all his money.
Totally
Happens.
so. Yeah.
It happens. It happens.
But do you have any fun memories of that weekend? Do you remember seeing the ticker or the CA?
I think for me, no. I remember seeing the tweet, but I think for me, I really looked at it as like, kind of one of these moments in the industry that you almost can't believe, right? Like someone who's been in this industry for so long, to see the president-elect of the United States launch his own crypto token was kind of a big moment, and it really it really showed that this technology is here to stay, and that like, I remember when we celebrated when the Bitcoin ticker was on CNBC for the first time in like 2016. Like all of my friends were like, "Can you believe it's on CNBC that they're publishing the Bitcoin price like randomly on the ticker, the ticker wheel or the tape?" And so like that was a big moment for us. And like look how far we've gone, where the guy who's going to be the next president of the United States is launching his own meme coin. So to us, it was it's just one of those. It's another one of those like moments that like, look, this industry will continue to grow. It'll have its ups and downs. It'll have its cycles. But if you're building for the long term, like generally you're rewarded for it.
Yeah, and talking about like the institutions, we've also spent a lot of time. So Robinson, you went to Capitol Hill in February. You did not do the OOTD video that was requested.
I'm never gonna live this down.
So say it for context. Robinson on a pod said that if a clip gets 300 likes, he'll do like a outfit of the day video, and that's never come.
Maybe it still will. Maybe it's still. I'm just like building this suspense.
But yeah, Robinson, how has our interaction been with members of parliament, members of government? How are they perceiving crypto technology, and how are they perceiving Wormhole as a technology to facilitate that?
Yeah, I think when we like represented Wormhole in Capitol Hill, the focus at the time was, I kind of view it as the part of coming on-chain, and then there's the actual on-chain mechanics, right? So I think the administration approached it well, in the sense they said, okay, what's the most critical use case, and also like where's the friction? Critical use case, I would say stablecoins. So a lot of like, the Genius Act, obviously, that was passed, and Clarity is like a lot of these things focused on, okay, how do we make sure to make any sort of regulation super clear around the most important thing? And then in a lot of the conversations we have, they're focused on, how do you KYC users? How do you give them the opportunity to use these things, but also protect them. And so a lot of it was focused on like the coming on-chain layer. And what I found really interesting is they all were very familiar with interoperability, but they weren't super educated on the technology. They were very familiar with Wormhole. And so we just had a really good opportunity to like educate them on how this is decentralized, how critical it is, even though they kind of were already saying that it was. Stable coins obviously attribute a ton of our volume. And so I think it was overall really productive. I'm assuming back in next year, we'll probably do the same thing. And it'll be a lot more actionable this time, whereas before it was more educational, and then we were answering a lot of questions around stable coins, around KYC and these various things. So I've seen nothing but positive momentum. I know we have the market structure bill coming out. That's a huge focus right now. But yeah, I think it's good for us to be involved in the conversation, and we keep getting asked back and asked more for our input, and we'll continue to give it.
Is working with policymakers one of our top focuses at the foundation?
Absolutely. We work with great organizations like the DeFi Education Fund. They're great in terms of like, I think we've now moved from like stable coins, or we're still on that, but now we're looking at DeFi protocols. How do we regulate DeFi protocols? How they should be different? What justifies decentralization? Like these are the kind of questions and things that the DEF is helping us with. And the foundation will, of course, continue to represent on Hill. And we plan to as early as Q1 next year.
Awesome. I'll also talk about my experience in Korea.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're worldwide, representing worldwide.
So I was basically speaking at the South National Assembly in South Korea. So you were actually supposed to speak that time, but you...
Racha put a suit on, guys.
I put a suit on. But it was a great experience. I'm still in touch with a lot of the policymakers that were at that event, and we continuously talk to those members of parliament in terms of how they want to structure their crypto.
You know what's interesting? What was interesting to me is like how many of the policy members used Signal.
Yes.
Like they all use Signal. Like they're like, what's your Signal? Like, like go to a crypto conference, everyone's like, what's your Telegram? Like, what's your Signal? Like here's and it's actually great because you're on. It's like way better than email, and it just feels much faster, and they actually kind of care and give you a line.
In Asia, it's the opposite. They still do business cards. So
really,
I learned the formal way of presenting a business card. You have to bow down. It's very respectful.
Both hands.
Both hands. I still do that in India, and my relatives look at me like, "What are you doing, bro?"
Why do you give your relatives business cards?
No, I mean whenever I give them a gift or something. So it's like,
big shot out.
Yeah. Well, I do go for a lot of arranged marriage proposals these days. So I'm joking, but on the topic of stablecoins and policy, in March was the first time we announced M0 as a critical partner using Wormhole infrastructure. I think our relationship with the M0 team has definitely evolved over the years. We've helped them launch a lot of stablecoins. We've helped them with a lot of DeFi strategy. Robinson, how has this relationship evolved, and what are next steps with the M0 team?
Yeah, I think so. Wormhole, almost as a team, we have kind of like two, I would say, paths for the business. So one is how do we make the best like open permissionless tools so that anyone can do anything cross-chain. The other one is we say, okay, hey, there are some like partners we want to work really closely with, and I think we put a lot of intention behind doing that. What does that look like? Helping them with DeFi strategy, helping build custom implementations for what they're doing. So we have this like, Wild West of, not Wild West is probably a bad way of saying it, but like anyone can use Wormhole, right? And then we still have the anyone can use Wormhole, but we have a team that'll come over top and really help make sure that both parties are successful. And so I think it's evolved in the sense where they've given us a lot of feedback what we can do better. We've done the same. We've built products together. We've had a lot of wins together. And those are the types, I think, of relationships you just want. You want to stack those, have more of those. And so, shout out to the M0 guys. They've been great. And I think we'll look to do a lot more of that. And we have done, right? Like Securitize, BlackRock. We're close, obviously, with the Ripple team. And so we'll continue to have those like bigger relationships while also fostering the permissionless, open, anyone from anywhere can use Wormhole.
Yeah. You know what else happened in March? I couldn't make it to this event because I don't have a US visa, but we hosted Tokenize. New York, yeah.
Oh, maybe we're doing another one. Just saying, maybe.
We probably will. But yeah, Saeed, how's your experience there? Okay, so let me set more context. Okay, this is like too big for me to not set enough more context. Okay, so this happened at the New York Times headquarters.
Yeah, New York Times Center. Yeah.
A certain competitor also put a truck in front of the venue, which was great. Mr. Research called it out.
They put
it was
their
a day.
own logo. With
That was my entertainment for the week because I was online and that's the only thing I could do to contribute.
That's how you. By the way, that's how you know you're winning in some ways, right? Like you piss them off enough where they'll spend a lot of money to put a ad outside of your event.
Yeah.
So like I loved it. I was like, this is great.
And it was reverse marketing because Dan loved it. Yeah, like go for it, dude. But yeah, say this is probably the first time Wormhole hosted an event at scale focusing on institutions. How was the vibe there? How was the experience? Tell us more about it.
It was great. I mean, it was really an invitation to the some of the largest banks in New York. New York kind of being the capital for U.S. finance, and so we had investment banks, we had hedge funds, we had regulators there, we had members of the SEC, we had senior members of the SEC on stage, and they rarely go on stage. They're going on stage more often now, but at the time we hadn't seen like
they're kind of like you, Saeed.
Yeah,
that's a rare treat. Rare treat.
Yeah, I mean, no, but we had like, and then we had some great DeFi protocols out there too. We had Athena, we had Aave, we had a lot of the great builders. M0 was out there as well, and so it was really a great event from the perspective that we brought so many different companies, just great companies, great brands, great teams who are either building on DeFi or just have 200, 300-year-old banks, and they're really trying to get into the space. And the thing, I think the big thing of why they come out to these events, when we invite them to them, is because they're looking for not only the technology aspect of the things that Wormhole's been able to contribute to the space, but also they're looking for scale, right? So like when we talk about an M0 or we talk about a JPM or a BlackRock, these people understand that they're going to have some on-chain strategy for their business that makes sense for them, but they need to work with technology partners that are able to give them scale in the places that matter. Like that's what we do for M0. That's what we do for Securitize and Biddle and a lot of these different things. Is we're giving them scale from day one in the places where it matters in this industry, so that they can actually have a good experience. They can provide a good experience for the ultimately the holders of the assets that they have or the financial products that they're issuing on chain. So a lot of the conversations that I had at that event centered around, hey, this is your strategy. Here's a multi-chain scaling strategy for that. Right? Here's how we've done it in the past for others. Here's what we've seen, what has worked really well. Here are some of the case studies and metrics that I can share with these people. And then they go and they take that back to their teams, and then we start to have conversations and, off to the races. So I think an event like that was incredibly productive because, everything in TradFi goes very slow, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. So you have to plant the seeds and you have to water the seeds, and then it grows into something that can actually be as meaningful as a Biddle or Apollo's ACRED or the stuff that some of the other institutions are doing.
Yeah,
I actually think it's hard for a lot of crypto companies to do that too, because in crypto the motion for a lot of things is so fast and like kind of just willy-nilly messages here and there, and a lot of companies, if they do want to like move in the institutional direction, I think everyone will kind of be forced to, in some senses, they have to either learn that motion or adopt that motion. Solana is obviously good at it. I think we do a really good job of it, but it's very different, right? It's 6 months, 8 months, 12 months cycles where you're not getting instant gratification at all. You're placing like really big bets and hoping to see the ROI. So I think that's something that we've done, I think, a really good job of like adopting that muscle and to get to what success we've had today with the institutions.
Yeah, definitely. And just for everyone's context, Carrie, who leads our events team, Carrie is working on Tokenize for about 8 months. Yeah, so it's heavy lift. And it is true. It's very hard to pull off. It's very hard to get all these people in one room to talk about crypto. Talk about crypto first, but then get them in one room together. It's horrible. But Carrie managed it. It was great. And, just to sort of, add a little bit more sugar, that month we announced Biddle on Solana. The next month, we announced Centrifuge and Wormhole for the Hannes Henderson Fund.
Yeah.
We also announced Mercado Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It was also the month when the multi-chain institutional all-time AUM was $3 billion.
Yeah.
It was also the month when we announced Van Eck and we announced Centrifuge DE, RWA. So I think the event and then what followed was just a lot of institutional partnerships. Whenever I was talking to our partners in Korea, in Hong Kong, and Singapore, they were all looking at what was happening in the States or in the West, and they were trying to replicate it. I think one thing that was really interesting in April, especially Robinson, I want to get your thoughts on. We got our first win in LATAM with Mercado Bitcoin. Mercado Bitcoin, obviously a huge partner, and shout out Juliana and Dan for powering through on this. How's our experience working with Mercado Bitcoin, and what do we think about the Brazilian landscape?
Yeah, maybe I'll just take a quick step back and I'll toot Wormhole's horn a little bit in that you see things on Twitter and it seems like short-term wins, like you just got oh yay celebration, that month of wins took a long time. They just kind of all culminated in that month, and I think Wormhole just has cornered the institutional market in a lot of ways. Like these tokenization platforms act as the gateway to anything coming on chain, and we have these relationships with all of them, a lot of them exclusive. And as it pertains to Mercado Bitcoin, I mean, that one made a lot of sense to prioritize. You have, I think it's the second largest exchange, keep me honest,
yes.
And what the largest tokenization platform, I think at the time it was like 200 mil. And so it made a lot of sense for us. We've been investing a lot in LATAM. You obviously lead a lot of our global expansion efforts. Dan's near the Brazil area, around the Brazil area. So it made a lot of sense for us. We're seeing a lot more there, a lot of stablecoin usage coming out of there. And so we'll continue to invest.
I think it also shows, we work really well with the DeFi partners, but we also work really well with the institutional and sort of more traditional companies that are interacting with crypto. Like we work a lot with the Mercado Bitcoin, just helping them think about what's next.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it could be anything.
Honestly, that's a lot. Yeah, and that's a lot of the, when we have those bigger relationships, that's a lot of what we do is these companies know their business model and they know how to maybe deploy on one chain, but not a bunch, right?
Yeah.
And so we are oftentimes having conversations about here's how I'd approach this chain, here's how I think about your multi-chain strategy, et cetera.
Yeah. And on the topic of, deploying multi-chain, I want to talk to the king of NTT himself, Saeed. So
NTT.
In May, we launched the NTT Launchpad. For everyone listening in, the NTT Launchpad basically enables you to use a no-code solution to make your token multi-chain. Saeed, we've been seeing a lot of these bigger assets like Sol and Polygon, Pol, essentially want to go multi-chain, build markets and other ecosystems. So we saw Sol go to AVAX, and then we saw Pol go to Solana. What's the thesis behind this? Why do these bigger ecosystems want their token outside of their ecosystem and build markets in other ecosystems?
I think ultimately it comes down to what is the utility of these assets. Like if you're an asset issuer and you have a token, you're always going to care about distribution. You want to make sure that the holders of that asset are either using it productively. So in an L1 context, they're using it to spend gas, and that's why they hold it, right? It has this intrinsic value. But a secondary reason why people hold it is because they believe in the project that you're building. They believe in the future demand for that product, right? And ultimately, that kind of brings you to the distribution question, which is if you are Polygon or if you are any one of these other companies, what you want is distribution, but not all distribution is equal, right? Someone can airdrop to 1 million people, but the quality of that distribution may not be great because you're giving something for free for people who may not even care, right? And so if I can go and build markets and distribute my token to holders everywhere using NTT, then that's going to be a net positive for my company and my token holder base, right? Anyone who believes in our mission, anyone who believes in the utility of our efforts or in our future should be able to have easy access. They shouldn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to go and express that conviction. And so I think it's just a logical sense for people to want to expand distribution as wide as possible and be able to capture the highest quality of community that you can. And that doesn't mean only focusing on one blockchain. It means focusing on all blockchains that you believe are relevant, right? So
Yeah. And on that topic, we talked a little bit about Ripple, Cardano, and some of these legacy blockchains wanting to do that. June was also the month when we announced Ripple for the first time, working with them. This is also the time when my ACL got fixed and I was able to travel to a conference.
Personal win.
Personal win. Yeah, personal W. But yeah, Robinson, talk to us about the Ripple relationship.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ripple is one of those like institutions in crypto, right? They have done a really good job of building mind share, building products. Now, being able to, for the products they haven't built, being able to obviously acquire those products. And so to us, Ripple is here to stay. They're a very like legit force in the space. And so we wanted we like to work with people like that. We like work with companies like that. So we ended up talking to them for a long time and ended up figuring out a number of ways in which we can work together. Some more news around Ripple's coming out very soon, very, very soon. But some of that was connecting to XRPL, which is historically difficult because it's not, easily programmable. I know some of the XRP army might argue with me there. And then also the EVM sidechain and some of the other things with XRP and some of the other stuff Ripple has. So that was like pretty much a no-brainer from our perspective. And if you think about talking about bringing these assets to other chains, I know I'm getting ahead of myself around Mon and all that. Saeed talk about that later, but like XRP and these like assets that are in the top 50 on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, whatever you use, bringing those to other ecosystems want those, right? They have a huge demand and they drive activity, et cetera. So like a Solana is gonna want that to be traded, or a Sui is gonna want that to be traded. So like Ripple's just a good next extension of that, and XRP and things within the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just sort of, there's just too much on my phone. I'm so sorry. We just
we're only at like June.
We're at July. We're at July.
Okay.
Okay. So July is when we announced Hamilton Lane. That was a big one. It's also when we joined TAC, the Tokenized Asset Coalition. One highlight from July that I do want to mention is Mento. We've been working with them for a while. FXACC. I think the team is great, and the vision that they have, it sort of fits into Wormhole's core competency in a great way. And I think it is a natural extension of what Wormhole would want to achieve when Forex is on chain as well. It is also when Fogo Testnet went live on Portal. I want to fast forward to August. I know we will do some content with Mike Cahill later, but August was when they announced the U.S. Department of Commerce using Pyth as their data feed, and that was powered by Wormhole. Saeed, you obviously have a really, really close relationship with the Pyth team. How was that announcement for you?
incredibly proud. I think,
Was it like a CNBC Bitcoin moment for you? Like Mike Cahill outside of the Department of Commerce in a suit?
it was cool to just like visualize what the future might look like when the government is deciding to publish its data directly on chain, and it's actually using Wormhole, right? And it's using Pyth. It's publishing Pyth data, or it's using Pyth to publish the data on chain. So like, just kind of imagining a world in which all of this data is available on chain for the on-chain economy. We understand how valuable government data is to the traditional financial market. Like, markets move based off of, the jobless number or the non-farm payroll number. Like, all of these things, like, everybody kind of stands still at 8:59 waiting for this number on every trading desk in the world. And then markets move completely based on these numbers. So to see that the US government sees the crypto markets as just as important as the traditional financial markets, and understanding the difference and understanding that they need to be able to communicate with them in a different way, right? Not in the traditional way that they have been communicating with global markets, but actually meeting them on their own turf and bringing that data on chain so that on-chain programs can actually read it and then hopefully react to it. I thought was, it's an incredible moment, and I look forward to kind of seeing that future continue to build and have a major impact in terms of like the development of on-chain markets, right? This is a big piece of it.
Yeah, and Pyth's really similar to our sort of the way that we partner with protocols as well. So they announced this U.S. Department of Commerce thing, and then a week later they're integrated with Koshi. It's like the most crypto native thing ever. They're in the prediction markets beta.
In both foot in both worlds.
Yeah, yeah. And then that sort of brings us to September. Again, like I think the latter half of our year was a lot more exciting than the first half, and we just talked about the first half, and that was awesome as well.
Yeah.
So September is when we announced the Centrifuge and Janus Henderson S S&P 500 index token. It is also when we announced W 2.0, the revamped tokenomics. It also brought together the Wormhole Reserve. Yeah, Robinson talks to us about W 2.0 and the Wormhole Reserve.
Well, let's not gloss over the S&P 500 because I think I was reading a number. There is something like 14 trillion indexed against that number. Like it's absurd. And I think this is the first like legitimate time this index has come on chain. So it's almost at this point like an honor to be able to kind of facilitate any of the cross chain movement and just being part of the stack that helps make that a reality. But as it pertains to like, I guess pivoting to kind of W and the reserve and things like that, I think W 2.0 was a really cool moment because it was a culmination of feedback from community, feedback from investors, feedback from ecosystem participants like validators, and then also obviously the foundation and contributors on like how can we make this token better, how can we make it more meaningful. Obviously, we shifted the unlock schedule to be much less like punishing, I think you could say. We launched obviously the reserve, and we did a few other things with the goal of like the yield, obviously, with the goal of adding utility, making the token more meaningful within the protocol. And I mean, one thing that we're really focused on is revenue, right? I think crypto is moving from a just purely speculative era to like, okay, we're building real businesses. Like, what's the value you're providing and now making money? And I think we're in a really good position for those numbers to look healthy, especially for not only for the industry, but like for the tech industry. And so it makes sense as we kind of get a little bit more regulatory approval on, what does it look like to have ownership on some of that revenue as a token holder, especially if we don't want these things to be securities. The reserve is a nice stopgap, right? It's a way to say like, hey, this is gonna go to token holders, whether it's in a yield form or something else. And so that was a big moment because I think it was like a culmination of us listening to all those parties that I mentioned, and then driving more value to those that believe in the project, participate in the ecosystem, et cetera.
Yeah.
More to come there too on the W front.
I think the S&P 500 thing is like, I think it's like criminally undermarketed because it's like,
Well, I kind of passed on as well. That's fault on me. Go ahead.
oh no, but I think in general, I don't think like in a permissionless world, you can create any token you want. You can create 50 versions of the S&P 500 index, but to get one that's like blessed by the Dow Jones,
it's pretty crazy.
It's going to show you a little bit about how these on-chain markets evolve, right? And so there are real brands, there are real backers and issuers, and being able to work with them and actually issue the actual version of that on-chain, it always takes some time, but over time you're going to start to see markets, form around that. And that's one of the things that a lot of the bets that we make, when we work with partners is over the long term, will this actually be something useful to the market? And I could see something like that as having such a high growth potential. And right now, most people don't even know about it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Couldn't have put it better, to be honest. I think we just clip it and that's how we market it. But Saeed, okay, we're at October now, right? You obviously have been, I think you're like the longest contributor to Wormhole, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not the longest. There's actually a lot of people, because Wormhole's open source and we
Yeah.
have a bunch of different people who contribute to the code. So there are people who have been contributing longer than I have that are still contributing today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. But October is when we completed 5 years.
Yeah.
And we did the whole ecosystem call. Do you have like a favorite memory out of all these 5 years? Like, okay, this was pretty crazy. And I know you said the Tolly moment at ETH Denver on the call. Is there like another favorite moment?
Favorite moment? That's such a hard question.
And you can't say Etihad Arena. That we already that
Yeah.
I need a clip out of this.
My favorite, that's a tough question because there's so many
Well,
different.
come on, give us as much as you can give us.
Um, I would say like just watching, I think anytime you like launch open source software out there and someone that you never thought would use it uses it, it's pretty amazing, right? So like when you launch NTT and you see Lido adopted as a standard, right? Or when you see BlackRock issue billions of dollars on chain, those billions of dollars coming from their institutional clients, and then like that was my point about no pilots, no case studies, like real things happening. So like let's actually bring institutions on chain. And so it's not just kind of doing it, it's also seeing the adoption. So like those are always the moments that stick out in my mind. It's like watching BUIDL go from $0 on the first day when we were watching it, wondering like, is anyone in TradFi gonna decide to use this product? And then seeing that go to $1 billion and then 2 billion, and then just watching the adoption. So most of my great memories, like if I were to pick them, have to do with just seeing people adopt open source permissionless technologies in the real world, especially people that you would never have expected to kind of leverage the technology. So that's what I always get the most kick out of.
It's like President Trump using wormhole powered assets type moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, the president launching a token, but then everyone's they're using Wormhole to distribute that token, and it's like pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
Robinson, what about you?
Oh no, I didn't think this was coming to me yet.
It has to come to you. Yeah, I've only been here a year. I don't have as many stories as you right now.
I think that Wormhole, what a lot of people don't realize has a lot of, it's like an umbrella for a lot of different products. Wormhole does a lot of things. It does messaging, it does different types of token transfers, different types of like asset optimizations on those standards. We have a bunch of front ends, etc. I think one of the things though, and it's not necessarily as much the open source side, which I do agree with Saeed is really rewarding, but when we launched NTT, I would say it's one of our flagship products, that was a result of understanding the market really well over a number of years. Because we used to, bridges, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but at the beginning, a lot of bridges were the cause of a lot of liquidity fragmentation, right? It caused a lot of the problems that we now have helped clean up today. And so when we launched NTT, it was the culmination of like understanding the market, understanding the liquidity fragmentation problem, listening to asset issuers and developers. Like a lot of the NTT design is not entirely advantageous to Wormhole, right? Like technically you should use Wormhole as the default because it's the most secure, but technically you could use NTT, the framework, and you could be your own signer, your own verifier, and kind of take the Wormhole verification out of it. But we had to do that because that's what asset issuers wanted. And so NTT took a long time, right? You're trusting this to issue your asset, sometimes to the tune of billions of dollars. We made sure it was extremely audited. We made sure it was perfect. It took a long time. And so I remember when we first launched that, I was just really proud because I felt like it was like a very good product development process, very like genuine. We uncovered all the problems, and that's why we've seen the adoption we have. I mean, NTT secures the market caps it secures is upward of like 80 billion at this point. So it's just been a wildly successful product. And I'd say what I'm most excited for, just getting ahead of myself now, is what I hope to be is where Portal's going, and we can have that conversation.
And I was just getting to that. So this is also when we announced the revamped version of Portal. It was in October. Robinson, just to give you a throwback, at Breakpoint last year, you and Dan sort of showed what Portal would be.
Yeah.
And now we're at Breakpoint again. Since then, we've obviously launched Portal Swaps. We've launched Portal Earn. There's a lot of chatter about a lot of different products that, I'll let Saeed say if he wants to say, else you can obviously wait for the announcements. And we'll talk about Portal in a minute. I do want to get back to Saeed and talk about November.
Okay.
Because this is when, a lot of things were happening. We crossed 70 billion in volume, by the way, that month. We got Aerodrome to bring assets over to base using Wormhole Tech as well. But the biggest one was Sunrise.
Nice.
Yeah, Saeed, take it away. Tell us everything.
Sun always rises.
The sun always rises.
Sun always rises.
I think we need to use the king of NTT a lot more. I think Saeed on a horse. I think we need to get that, run that. The community needs to make that. Okay. If anyone in the community makes that, we'll give out a Wormhole grant for that particular.
Oh my gosh.
Saeed on a horse.
Yeah, we
The sun always rising.
Yeah, with a crown on top, and there's a sun in the background. There we go.
Sunrise was an incredible product launch for us. I think it's something that addresses a market need for asset issuers. I mean, we are very, very dialed in terms of like, all of the difficulties of a new blockchain launching day one and a new token being issued day one. We've been a part of more than I think any team in this space. Just given by the fact that we've been in the space for such a long time. We've launched the most blockchains. We've worked with the most blockchain teams on their day one, the most stressful time in their entire life, on their token listings. I don't think there's a team in crypto that's done more than that, than maybe a sex team, right? But and so with that, we have a unique insight into all of the challenges that come after day one, right? And all of the challenges that happen on day one. And so Sunrise is really a product that's focused on not only solving the technical problems, but also solving the go-to-market and the distribution and expansion problems that these asset issuers have. And so being able to put all of that together into one type of service that can actually deliver a good result was a great experience. And I think, just walking around this conference here today, everyone wants to talk to me about it. It's on everyone's mind because they really like the outcome. I would say that, like, look, it's important. It's important to realize that that was the first time that I had seen that happen in crypto, where a non-native asset could issue on a new blockchain on day one, minute one, and be able to capture expanded distribution, create liquid markets, get their flywheel going, not only in their own ecosystem, but in another ecosystem simultaneously. And that performance to be as competitive with centralized exchanges, right? So that's I've never seen that happen before. I think that's the reason why everyone's so excited about it. There's a lot of work to make sure that happened. There were a lot of pitfalls. There could have been a lot of things that went wrong. Luckily, congrats to the team that worked on it and all of the partners as well who worked on it with us. But, now the mission is to continue that and really show what's possible when you take a lot of that unique expertise that you have in this specific vertical and you productize it and make it into a turnkey service for asset issuers. For us, I think is going to be something very exciting, and we're going to continue to invest in it and really try to take it to the next level.
I'll go out on a limb here and say in 2025, the chasm between decentralized exchange and centralized exchange, I think, shrunk for the closed or got as narrow, the most narrow it has ever been. And I think there were two main catalysts. Number one is Hyperliquid, right? And number two is what Sunrise did for Solana. Solana was just rising the charts in terms of volume for Mon, beating out a lot of centralized exchanges. And I think that's a lot of people's dreams when it comes to anything on chain is like, yes, of course, it's easy to build things in a centralized capacity and do really well, but it's difficult from a decentralized perspective. And things have always been slower, or maybe more expensive, et cetera. But now that gap is closing, and it's because of products like Hyperliquid, but also initiatives and products like Sunrise. So it's cool to kind of, I think, be a part of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised to see Solana spot volume be higher than Hyperliquid spot volume that week as well. Yeah. That happened because of Sunrise. Ed from the team, he has a beautiful way of putting this together. He says, how assets arrive on Solana is Wormhole, how users are onboarded is Portal and Mayan, and then how capital markets form on chain, that is Sunrise. And
I didn't know he said that. That's a great quote.
That is beautiful. Yeah, we will do an ASMR video on that sometime. All right. December. I'm gonna close out my phone. We have the last topic of the day. Saeed, I'm so sorry. It's been too long. We've just done too much this year.
Yeah.
Props to both of you guys for leading amazing teams. Let's talk about Portal.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Saeed. Go ahead.
Portal's exciting. I mean, there's a lot of product development that's going on. Ultimately, the goal that I see for Portal is you know, a place where users that are looking to move across blockchains can fulfill all of their desires, you know? So it's not just getting to the blockchain, but it's like, what else do you want to do? And how do we make sure that you are routed to the best possible provider for that? And so there's a tremendous amount of product development that's going on. We have a number of great product announcements that are coming out that are in service to that mission, which is like, there's a lot of people who use Portal. That user base is very vibrant. A lot of the OG whales use Portal, you know, one of the most trusted websites to be able to move assets from one blockchain to another, simply based on how long it's been there, how reliable it's been.
And you kind of see the effect at a conference like Solana Breakpoint where everyone just knows Portals, like Portal.
Yeah, everyone loves
Portal.
using it. But you know, now it's time to get into this new era, and we've already begun that this year, which is how do we make sure that they're having the best possible experience and they're able to navigate whichever blockchain they're going to in the easiest way possible. And so we want to make sure that they have that available to them as easy as possible. So we're gonna, you know, we'll have some pretty big announcements soon, which will unlock new capabilities for that user base. And
No spoilers.
no spoilers here, but you know, but soon more info to come on that. But like I said, like the mission stays the same. It's like, so it's a great website. It's very well trusted by the community. It's got a big growing user base. It does a tremendous amount of volume every day, and so making sure that we can continue to service those users in a better way is the mission, and that likely that's going to be expanding the product to kind of meet their needs in 26, which we are anticipating to be more expanded than its current needs for 25. So, yep.
Robinson.
I mean, the only thing I'll add is like a lot of people have come to know and trust Portal because it's one of the best ways to transfer things between blockchains. Now it's a lot more, and it will be a lot more soon. So it's kind of shifting from like a portal in the sense of a way to get between blockchains to what I would call like the portal to DeFi, bringing your funds on chain and making sure your funds can go wherever on chain and do whatever on chain, all within the same user interface. And that's like kind of the end vision. And like portal to DeFi is kind of that one sentence I think about when I think about where Portal's going.
Yeah.
So a lot more to come. And this isn't a lot more to come in quarters. This is a lot more to come.
Like weeks.
You know, yes,
Days.
very soon.
Hours. You never know.
All right. Okay. So we talked a lot about our institutional partners, you know, Securitize, BlackRock, Hannes Henderson, Van Eck, Apollo. We talked a lot about the DeFi partners, you know, Lido, Uniswap, all the other DeFi partners we work with. We talked about Sunrise. We talked about Portal. I want to give a special shout out and say that I want you and Robinson to sort of echo the shout out and just, you know, glaze them for a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long. I want to talk about the Mayan finance team and how much volume they contribute to the Wormhole ecosystem.
Happy to glaze them.
Go.
I mean, they're awesome. Great team. Awesome individuals. Very, very honorable team that's been able to outcompete many of their competitors in an extremely competitive market. There's nothing more competitive than intense. Everyone is competing at the smallest speed level, at the cheapest cost level. It is a hard business to do well, and mine has continued to exceed my expectations, and I'm super excited for their roadmap. I'm super excited about the stuff that's coming out for them and their product launches that are this month and next month. So, you know, shout out to the Mayan team. They're some of the best, and they continue to grow. When we look at the market for intents, we see many of the players shrinking, new players coming in and taking market share. Mayan has consistently continued to grow and grow and grow as the market has consistently gotten more and more and more competitive. And that's, like, to me, a very strong signal for a good team.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're competing in the top 5, sometimes second, sometimes third in terms of 24-hour volume. I think it's not long until they're solidly number 1. When we think about, let's just use one chain like Solana, for instance. Since inception, Wormhole's brought, let's say, like roughly 12 billion into Solana. Mayan's been a huge part of that, right? Mayan's built on top of Wormhole, and they're helping facilitate faster, cheaper flows. And I know Saeed's been working closely with the team, and I think this is another example of, like, we should expect to see some pretty cool upgrades sooner rather than later. That's going to obviously make Mayan better, but also Portal, right? Because Portal uses Mayan. So there's a lot coming there, and it's been a pleasure to work with those guys. They're awesome. Like we talked about, right? Like M0, Securitize, like there's the permissionless side, but there's also, how do we work closely with people that are really good builders and really trying to make a difference and trying to win? And how do we align ourselves with them for the long term? And Mayan's another good example of, like, successful outcomes from doing that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Robinson and Saeed. This has been the Wormhole Ecosystem Call for 2025. We will see you in January. Thank you so much for listening in.